Bible, and it comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And this is what it says about love. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. I would like to share the words now of St. Augustine on love, which touches my soul. What does love look like? It has the hands to help others. It has the feet to hasten to the poor and needy. It has eyes to see misery and want. It has the ears to hear the sighs and sorrows of men. That is what love looks like. There's an author whose book I picked up years ago, and the name of the book is Thank You. And in it, it has all kinds of quotations on how and why to say thank you. And in its introduction, the author is Dan Zadra. He recounts a Tibetan tale that brings a smile to him. And here is the tale. On the morning of his 50th birthday, a prosperous merchant sprang out of bed with a grin. Singing and whistling, he saddled his favorite ox and dressed in his finest robes. "Where are you going so early?" inquired his wife. "Today I am 50 and grateful," he laughed. "Today I shall ride back down the road and thank all the ones who made such a difference in my life." Hearing this, the merchant's wife threw herself on the rug and burst into tears. "Why so sad?" he asked. "The road back is long," she cried. "You will never return." It's true. The road back is long and gets longer every year. But most of us would surely take it if we could. Along the way, we would meet anew all the good people who made such a difference in our lives. Did someone walk you home from school when you were young? Who sat up with you all night when you were sick? Who taught you how to catch a fish, or kick the ball, or carry a tune? Who talked you out of quitting the team, or talked you into getting a degree? Who gave you your first break, or your first order, or bet on your company, or told you how good you could really be? Who cheered you on when you were winning, or cheered you up when you were down? Who thought of you when everyone else was thinking of themselves? For me, the road back is long, And some of these people are gone now. Did I thank them? I don't know. I don't think so. I meant to. This is entitled, Thank You for Believing. Sometimes, and this has been written by Albert Schweitzer, sometimes our light goes out, but is blown into a flame by another human being. Each of us owes deepest thanks to those who have rekindled the light. And that's Albert Schweitzer. Making and nurturing friendships is beneficial to us in many ways. Good friends are good for our health. Friends can help you celebrate good times and provide support during bad times. Friends prevent isolation and loneliness and give us a chance to offer needed company. Friends can also increase your sense of belonging and purpose, boost your happiness and reduce your stress, improve your self-confidence and self-worth, help you cope with traumas such as divorce, serious illness, job loss, or the death of a loved one. They can also encourage you to change some bad habits that you've picked up, such as drinking too much. Friends also play a significant role in promoting your overall health. Adults with strong social connections have a reduced risk of many significant health problems, including depression, high blood pressure. Studies have found that older adults who have meaningful relationships and social support are likely to live longer than their peers with fewer connections. I'd like to give you a definition of a true friend. Someone who accepts you unconditionally, helps you grow, supports you through tough times, and increases your ability to love yourself. You may also do these things for them, showing them that they mean as much to you as you do to them, and becoming a better friend. I will read you a birthday card from a friend, and it says, "Your friendship is a blessing. On your birthday, I want you to know how happy I am to be part of your life and to have you in mind. You've amazed me time and again with your kind heart and warm spirit. You've inspired me with your friendship and caring. I want you to know how grateful I am for you." Simone Weil, a philosopher, says the following: "The love of our neighbor in all its fullness simply means being able to say to him, 'What are you going through?'" And a quotation by another person. This is also from the Thank You book. "My friend picked me up when I was down, made me laugh though my eyes were filled with tears, held me close when there was nothing else to do. On friendship. If your friendship were a journal, it would be filled with all our amazing tales, inside jokes, and the little triumphs only you and I can appreciate. It would hold true beauty, we said, and the talents we applaud in each other, and the comfort of times we've helped one another through. And every page would hold the love, loyalty, and laughter of our wonderful forever friendship. And an oath to friendship, my oath to you. When you are sad, I will dry your tears. When you are scared, I will comfort your fears. When you are worried, I will give you hope. When you are confused, I will help you cope. And when you are lost and can't see the light, I shall be your beacon, sharing ever so bright. This is my oath I pledge to you. Why, you may ask? Because you are my friend. The New York Times weekend section, Sunday Styles, has almost a full page about a love story, a relationship story that's very, very beautiful. But they leave room to have a small thing like this, and it's called Love Stories. And I am going to read you one, and then I have a few more later on to read to you. But I've taken this one to read you first. This is from Tiny Love Stories, Darkness Followed by the Dawn. Julie stood at the funeral home entrance, hugging my cousins as if she'd known them forever. In the span of 3 years, I'd lost my beloved mother, my only sister, my uncle, my cousin, my husband of 25 years, and my job. My past was shattered, but my future was safe in my new love's gentle hands. Julie brought me water as I stood beside my sister's coffin. "I've got you," she whispered. I expect her to leave after so much sadness, but she stays. She is tiny and steadfast and true, and her love is bigger than the sun. And one more, the friends you find later on in life are special. By the time they cross your path, you know what a gift it is to have a true friend. So you love them dearly, appreciate them deeply, and cherish them with all your heart. You mean the world to me. Happy birthday. And I've chosen, many of us believe that God has given us gifts and talents. And we have various talents, and we're supposed to use them, and we're supposed to not keep them to ourselves, but to share them with our fellow human beings. However, just to have the talent and share is not enough. So I've taken from the New Testament again. This is a reading from St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, as they describe the different talents, but tell us talent is not enough, giving is not enough. We need the secret ingredient, And here it is, brethren, you are the body of Christ, and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then workers of miracles, then healers, helpers, administrators, speakers in various tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire the higher gifts. And I'll show you a still more excellent way. If I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. And I'll repeat the first part of the definition of love. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And since my whole career has been teaching and counseling, I wish to give you 3 examples of teachers who taught with love. The first one is called Too Busy for a Friend. One day, a teacher asked her students to list the names of the other students in the room on 2 sheets of paper, leaving a space between each name. Then she told them to think of the nicest thing they could say about each of their classmates and write it down. It took the remainder of the class period to finish their assignment, and as the students left the room, each one handed in the papers. That Saturday, the teacher wrote down the name of each student on a separate sheet of paper and listed what everyone else had said about that individual. On Monday, she gave each student his or her list. Before long, students were smiling. "Really?" she heard whispered. "I never knew that I meant anything to anyone. And I didn't know others liked me so much," were most of the comments. No one ever mentioned those papers in class again. She never knew if they discussed them after class or with their parents, but it didn't matter. The exercise had accomplished its purpose. The students were happy with themselves and one another. That group of students moved on. Several years later, one of the students was killed in Vietnam, and his teacher attended the funeral of that special student. She had never seen a serviceman in a military coffin before. He looked so handsome, so mature. The church was packed with his friends. One by one, those who loved him took a last walk by the coffin. The teacher was the last one to bless the coffin. As she stood there, one of the soldiers who acted as pallbearer came up to her. "Were you Mark's math teacher?" he asked. She nodded, yes. Then he said, "Mark talked about you a lot." After the funeral, most of Mark's former classmates went together to a luncheon. Mark's mother and father were there, obviously waiting to speak with his teacher. "We want to show you something," his father said, taking a wallet out of his pocket. "They found this on Mark when he was killed. We thought you might recognize it." Opening the billfold, they carefully removed 2 worn pieces of notebook paper that had obviously been taped, folded, and refolded many times. The teacher knew without looking that the papers were the ones of which she had listed all the good things each of Mark's classmates had said about him. "Thank you so much for doing that," Mark's mother said. As you can see, Mark treasured it. All of Mark's former classmates started to gather around. Charlie smiled rather sheepishly and said, "I still have my list. It's in the top drawer of my desk at home." Chuck's wife said, "Chuck asked me to put his in our wedding album." "I have mine too," Marilyn said. "It's in my diary." Then Vicky, another classmate, reached into her pocketbook, took out her wallet, and showed her worn and frazzled list to the group. "I carry this with me at all times," Vicky said. And without batting an eyelash, she continued, "I think we all saved our lists." That's when the teacher finally sat down and cried. She cried for Mark and for all his friends who would never see him again. And that's one teacher. And here is another that says what teachers and students mean to each other. Leonora Farber, a retired teacher from Junior High School 231 in Queens, was thrilled to receive a message from a student she taught 48 years ago. The student, Derek Taylor, went to Johns Hopkins University in Maryland and attended medical school in Boston. He did his residency in general surgery at St. Luke's Medical Center in New York, served as a commander in the United States Navy Medical Corps, and practiced a few years as a surgeon in Japan. Dr. Taylor is a surgeon now at the Redwood City Medical Center in California. The last time Ms. Farber saw her former student was at her daughter's graduation from Johns Hopkins University in 1974. Since Ms. Farber's daughter is in charge of her university class 40th reunion in 2014, she contacted Dr. Taylor. In response to the email, Dr. Taylor asked, "How is your mom doing? Tell her that the scared little black boy in Queens made it through Hopkins and Boston University Medical School, and I owe it to teachers like her who saw something in me." Ms. Farber wrote, "This is truly one of the best rewards any teacher can get." And we have a few in the class that understand this experience. And then I have Chrissy, who is sitting here, to thank for this one. She sent me this 2 years ago, and no specific reference. It's called Old Teacher. Old Teacher. Okay. And an old man meets a young man who asks, "Do you remember me?" And the old man says, "No." Then the young man tells him he was his student. And the teacher asks, "What do you do? And what do you do in life?" The young man answers, "Well, I became a teacher." "Ah, how good. Like me?" asks the old man. "Well, yes. In fact, I became a teacher because you inspired me to be like you." The old man, curious, asks the young man at what time he decided to become a teacher. The young man tells him the following story. "One day, a friend of mine, also a student, came in with a nice new watch, and I decided I wanted it. I stole it. I took it out of his pocket. Shortly after, my friend noticed that his watch was missing and immediately complained to our teacher, who was you. Then you addressed the class saying, this student's watch was stolen during class time. Whoever stole it, please return it." I didn't give it back because I didn't want to. You closed the door and told us all to stand up and form a circle. You were going to search our pockets one by one until the watch was found. However, you told us to close our eyes because you would only look for the watch if we all had our eyes closed. We did as instructed. You went from pocket to pocket, and when you went through my pocket, you found the watch and took it. You kept searching everyone's pockets, and when you were done, you said, "Open your eyes, we have the watch." You didn't tell on me, and you never mentioned the episode. You never said who stole the watch either. That day, you saved my dignity forever. It was the most shameful day of my life. But this is also the day I decided not to become a thief, a bad person. You never said anything, nor did you even scold me or take me aside to give me a moral lesson. I received your message clearly. Thanks to you, I understood what a real educator needs to do. Do you remember this episode, Professor? The old professor answered, "Yes, I remember the situation with the student watch, which I was looking for in everyone's pocket. I didn't remember you because I also closed my eyes while looking." This is the essence of teaching. If to correct, you must humiliate, you don't know how to teach. And here is one that my sister said is too long, leave it out. And I said, no, I'm putting it in. I'm keeping it. So bear with me. This is from from the Riverdale Press, and I cut out things when I find them interesting. And this was August 6, 2020. And this was an op-ed page in the Riverdale Press, and it's called Point of View, and the following title: How Teachers' Words Remind Me of What's Truly Important. Mrs. Goldberg, my second grade teacher at PS 24, gave me my first writing award, a gold star for excellence in book reports. The stickered index card is still pinned to my bulletin board more than 40 years later, a testament to the woman who ignited my passion for the written word and taught me to put things into much needed perspective. "You're a writer," she said to me. "I know one when I see one." It was a fact stated with absolute certainty, despite how much I insisted I wanted to be a pop star like Donnie and Marie Osmond. Writing seemed a very serious career to commit to at such a young age, and not nearly as glamorous as having a world tour. But it made sense, especially since I wasn't a Mormon, and I didn't have 7 or 8 siblings, just one younger sister to sing backup. When I asked my teacher what exactly writers were supposed to write about, she peered at me over her small, round glasses and smiled mischievously. "Well, Cheryl, what do you think they should write about?" I tried to visualize old books I'd borrowed from the library, something important like Little House on the Prairie or The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and everything else. I twisted my mouth and bit deeply into my cheek, a bad habit I employed when I was in deep concentration. "Do you understand?" She knelt close to my face, at barely 5 feet tall. She was almost my size, a heavy-set, middle-aged lady with short, feathery salt and pepper hair. Her perfume always reminded me of the smell of my grandma's Washington Heights elevator. Though she was tiny, she was my teacher, and therefore very intimidating. "I don't know," I replied. "Maybe." So she explained to me in a simple, concise way, so it would stick in my memory forever. It means even the smallest things that barely seem important are worthy of having their stories told. "Why?" I asked, puzzled but intrigued. "Because you see them that way." And there began my great love affair with writing, a relationship that has outlived many others despite its ebb and flow over the years. I'd like to say that Joan March in Little Women was the catalyst for my ambitions, but if I'm completely honest, it was the teacher who gave me that book and never asked for it back. A dog-eared 1970s pink paperback edition, the very one, sits on my shelf above my computer screen. I need not take it down to see its cover of the 4 March girls nestled together. The image is seared into my brain, having read it so many times. Mrs. Goldberg was a stickler for details and pried them out of me with endless questions. What is it exactly about a moment in time that makes it more than just a happenstance? What infuses it with universal truth? What makes it echo in your ears? As I sit at my desk these days, writing bits and pieces of essays born out of quarantine boredom, I recall her prodding. What things hold on to your heart and don't let go? The answer literally leaps out of me in a burst of enthusiasm, similar to Mrs. Goldberg's exuberant reactions scribbled in red ink on my homework. Stupendous, splendiferous, phenomenal. Her comments sent me running to the dictionary to look up their meanings. But after a while, I got the point. My teacher was my cheerleader, the one person in the world who believed not just in my ability to learn, but in my future. She saw infinite potential in a precocious 8-year-old and ran with it, pushing me, challenging me, inspiring me to dig deep into my soul and share what was there without fear or hesitation. Good teachers teach. Great teachers light a fire and stoke the flames. Recently, I reached out through Facebook, a group of Riverdale alum, asking if any of them knew what happened to Mrs. Goldberg. I had lost touch with her so long ago, sometime after I left for college in Syracuse. It was before the era of email and text, and I didn't just want to call. Instead, I wrote her a long letter, letting her know I was indeed going to be a writer, a journalist to be exact, and I would never forget how she encouraged me. She wrote me back a note on a monogram card and didn't seem very surprised by my news. How marvelous, she cried. You will shine. But it's Mrs. Goldberg that shines on. My classmates quickly responded with many fond memories of her, particularly her spaghetti luncheon organized in each year. Somewhere in the old photo album, I have a picture of her stirring a large pot over a kerosene burner. She's dressed in a red checkered apron that reads, "Kiss the cook." She boasted that she made the best meatballs and marinara sauce, and for the record, she was right. I smiled and paged through more of the Facebook comments until I landed on one which contained a link to an obituary. I suppose I knew it was likely she had died. She would have been nearly 100 by now. But seeing her name and reading a terse summation of her life, barely a paragraph, with not a single glowing adjective, seemed wrong for such a dynamic woman. It made me feel sad and angry at the same time. She should have been celebrated in a manner befitting the impact on so many. Guilt and regret swept over me. How had I never known she was gone? Maybe I didn't want to know. Perhaps I prefer to think of Mrs. Goldberg as an omnipresent light in my life, coaxing and coaching me to put pen to paper for, in my case, fingers to laptop and capture life, love, loss, and everything else. She would have, though, said to me, splendiferous. And this about the author. The author now is a New York Times best-selling writer who began her journalism career as an intern for the Riverdale Press 35 years ago, and I'm talking about 2020, so it's more than that, okay? This essay is planned to become the opening piece in a book of personal reflections. And her name is Cheryl Burke, B-E-R-K. And one last book, not last lecture, sorry about that, but the book is entitled, many of you have read it or heard about it. The book is Tuesdays with Maury, was on the bestseller list, and it was written in 1997. And it's about a relationship between a professor who was at Brandeis University and a student of his, and the student, the name of the author of the book is Mitch Albom, and he's the one that wrote Tuesdays with Maury. And while he was at Brandeis, this professor taught a human relations kind of course, and it included philosophy, it included psychology, and it included relationships, and it included purpose in life. And Mitch Albom became very close with him, and so did a lot of other students, but he became a mentor to him, and while at Brandeis, he would visit him during the professor's hours, and really, in a sense, he became not only a mentor to Mitch, but he became a loving father figure. And at graduation, Mitch gave him a gift, and the professor said to him, Mitch, let's not lose touch. Come 16 years later, and Mitch is flipping through the television channels. And for us who are a little older, or much older, should I say, he turns the channel, and there's his professor on television being interviewed by Nightline, Channel 7, Ted Koppel. How many, some of you remember? It was fantastic, it ran for years. And here is Ted Koppel interviewing his professor. And he's interviewing because they are talking about existence, love, life, purpose in life, and the reason why Ted Koppel has him on is because he has been diagnosed by ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and I am going to read what Mitch wrote about this disease. ALS is like a lit candle, and it melts your nerves and leaves your body a pile of wax. And he says the following: it usually begins with the legs and works its way up. You lose control of your thigh muscles so that you cannot support yourself standing. You lose control of your trunk muscles so that you cannot sit up straight. By the end, if you are still alive, you are breathing through a tube in a hole in your throat, while your soul, perfectly awake, is imprisoned inside a lump hump, perhaps able to blink or cluck a tongue, like something from a science fiction movie. The man frozen inside his own flesh. This takes no more than 5 years from when you contract the disease. Maury's doctors guessed he had 2 years left. Maury knew it was less. But my old professor had made a profound decision. One he began to construct the day he came out of the doctor's office with a sword hanging over his head. Do I wither up and disappear, or do I make the best of the time I have left? He had asked himself. He would not wither. He would not be ashamed of dying. Instead, he would make death his final project, the center point of his days. Since everyone was going to die, he could be of great value, right? He could be research, a human textbook. Study me in my slow and patient demise. Watch what happens to me. Learn with me. Maury would walk the final bridge between life and death and narrate the trip. After seeing his professor, he got in touch with him, and on the last months of his life, Mitch would travel 700 miles once a week to sit and talk with his professor. He'd bring them bagels, they'd talk about life situations. And these are the conclusions which they came to. They talked about greed and forgiveness. They talked about death and a meaningful life. And here are 5 big ideas that come from this book that came between the two of them. The true meaning of life lies in love, compassion, and relationships. Material wealth, success, does not bring lasting fulfillment or happiness. Embracing vulnerability and expressing emotions leads to personal growth and healing. Forgiveness is a powerful tool for finding inner peace and releasing resentment. Living with intention, purpose, and a focus on meaningful connections leads to a more meaningful life. And these little shots: take risks and live your life to the fullest. Devote yourself to greater causes to give yourself a purpose in life. Believe in your gut instincts. Facing your fears helps you live your life to the fullest. Love always wins. Failing means always being there, and family means always being there for each other through thick and thin. How many of you know the definition of the word? I'll say it in English. The word is marasmus, and in Greek it's marasmos. Anybody know what it means?
Withering?
Yes.
Withering away.
What?
Withering away.
Withering, yes. It means withering and dying. In other words, if you don't water a plant, it will die. It will wither away and die. But human beings can have marasmus. They can wither away and die, and I can give you the specific examples. Back in the turn of the century, there's evidence of this assumption in the disease marasmus, which accounted for more than half the deaths of infants in the first year of life. I will explain. I was in one set, and then there was also a test. They took children that were in a foundling home, okay? And then they took a child, for example, born the same day, one in a foundling home and one that went home. The home had parents, loving parents, grandparents, and there was interaction, love, and hugging and closeness. And in the foundling home, they had various people feeding the infant, making sure the infant was clean. And then they were beginning to compare what was happening. Obviously, the child that went home, that had the love, the hugging, what we call strokes, the interactions with that child, grew and normally, and was standing in the crib and laughing and had these relationships. And the babies that were at the foundling home, although they were fed by different people, although they were clean, slowly, and I've seen the films, which they say when you see something, some of this stays in your brain forever, and it's in my brain. I watched the infant who was at the foundling home slowly, although clean and fed, not having the closeness with one person or a few people, and being held close, and I would say with love, and having these strokes, interaction with it. Slowly, that baby, if somebody came by and did a teddy bear and whatever, that baby's eyes did not move. The baby's eyes were on the ceiling, did not blink, just straight at the ceiling. And several months later, not too many months later, that baby stopped sucking. In other words, marasmus. It withered away and died. When you give up sucking, that means no more food, you die. And this is what had happened, and the doctors had tried to see what would happen again later on after the turn of the century, and they had to stop the experiment after 3 months because they saw the same things were beginning to happen, and they had to call it quits. As a result, there was a book written at the time of a little later, at the turn of the century, and the name of the book, it had to do with the first year of life, and the name of the book was called The Rights of Infants, written by M.A. Ribble, and that book was published by Morningside Heights, Columbia University Press in 1943, and it wrote the rights, that infants had rights, and that was an important book. So the result is that we need these strokes, this closeness, and it says that a mother love was found to be necessary. Not only necessary, it's needed as we need air, food, and water, that closeness, that interaction. And it says, life patterns of interactions arise when the process which the infant receives strokes, whether caresses or verbal approval from the parent or others close to that child, and learns to respond to them. I have an essay that someone wrote, and I don't know who the writer is, but I love it. And it has to do, in essence, with a different kind of marasmus. And it's called A Rose Within. A certain man planted a rose and watered it faithfully. And before it blossomed, he examined it. He saw the bud that would soon blossom, and also the thorns. And he thought, how can any beautiful flower come from a plant burdened with so many sharp thorns? Saddened by the thought, he neglected to water the rose, and before it was ready to bloom, it died. So it is with many people. Within every soul, there is a rose. The godlike qualities planted in us at birth grow, and the thorns of our faults. Many of us look at ourselves and see only the thorns, the defects. We despair, thinking that nothing good can possibly come from it. We neglect to water the good within us, and eventually it dies. We never realize our potential. Some people do not see the rose within themselves. Someone else must show it to them. One of the greatest gifts a person can possess is to be able to reach past the thorns and find the rose within others. This is a characteristic of love. To look at a person and, knowing his faults, recognize the nobility in his soul and help him realize that he can overcome his faults. If we show him the rose, he will conquer the thorns. Then will he blossom, blooming forth 30, 60, 100-fold, as it is given to him. Our duty in this world is to help others by showing them that they're roses and not their thorns. Only then can we achieve the love we should feel for each other, and only then can we bloom in our garden. Leo Buscaglia he died in 1998, was a psychologist. And I'm going to give you 2 quotes from him. I know for certain that we never lose the people we love, even to death. They continue to participate in every act, thought, and decision we make. Their love leaves an indelible print in our memories. We find comfort in knowing that our lives have been enriched by having shared their love. And the other one is, love yourself, accept yourself, and be good to yourself, because without you, the rest of us are without a source of many wonderful things. There's a slam poet who talks about her mother, and her name is Gail Danville. And this is what she says: trying to get over the loss of her mama, who died of lung cancer, the poet, she loves a particular poem called 2 Pearls, is the one she most cherishes. One line reads, "Between classes, I learned they must take out your left lung, and you use one of your last breaths to tell me to finish school and don't even think about giving up." And lessons learned. This is a father who has a lesson for his son. He's trying to show him the difference between right and wrong and what are the consequences. And here's the lesson. Don't say something you'll regret out of anger. There once was a boy who had a very bad temper. His father decided to hand him a bag of nails and said that every time the boy lost his temper, he had to hammer a nail into the fence. On the first day, the boy hammered 37 nails into that fence. The boy gradually began to control his temper over the next few weeks, and the number of nails he was hammering into the fence slowly deceased. He discovered it was easier to control his temper than to hammer those nails into the fence. Finally, the day came when the boy didn't lose his temper at all. He told his father the news, and the father suggested that the boy should now pull out a nail every day he kept his temper under control. The days passed, and the young boy was finally able to tell his father that all nails were gone. The father took his son by the hand and led him to the fence. You have done well, my son. But look at the holes in the fence. The fence will never be the same again. When you say things in anger, they leave a scar, just like this one. You can put a knife into a man and draw it out. It won't matter how many times you say, "I'm sorry," the wound is still there. Sometimes parents, men and women, there's a tendency for more men not to tell their children, "I love you. I love you," okay? So they do it in other ways. They show affection through acts of gifts, through physical touch, through giving quality time, giving them emotional support, sharing activities with them, respecting and trusting them, and creating strong, meaningful relations without having to say, "I love you." And now I will be taking from the little snippets that New York Times had, and later, not too long ago, just about this past year, I learned that they took some of the snippets that were in the Times and they made a book out of it. And the book is called Love Stories, just like it had on that little title. And then I got the book and I chose about 10 of them. And these are stories of people living with love. And I'll begin with the first one. And it has to do with not being able to say, "I love you." Hugs can skip a generation. My Korean parents didn't grow up with physical affection from their parents, so they didn't know how to give it. Instead, they patted us on the back. The more vigorous the pat, the more they meant that they loved us, that they were proud of us. I now watch my children raised with uninhibited physical connections. They love, they hug, they kiss my parents. unabashedly telling them, I love you. My parents physically reciprocate with their grandchildren in a way they still can't with their own children. But that's okay. We had the shoulder pats. And here's one that I have pulled out from the Times, May 10th, 2020. And it goes like this. The name of it is called My Father's Love Language. The first time my father told me, I love you, he was in a hospital bed, hooked up to IV fluids and beeping machines. Cancer had transformed him into a fragile man who might take flight with the slightest wind. Standing by him as evening descended over New York City, I recognized little of the man who shoveled our entire driveway and hoisted me onto his shoulders. When he uttered those words, I love you, I was angry. I felt like it was his resignation. Yet, even at 17, I understood. He spoke his love because he could no longer love through action. And here are the stories that I've chosen from the book. That appeal to me. It starts with the first page of the book, and it shows 4 youngsters, they're brothers, and they're sitting on the couch, and they're just 4 little brothers when they were young. And this is their story. When we became one, we grew up in even numbers, 2 parents, 4 sons, 6 people, 2 boys per bedroom, summers with 2 of us at one of our grandparents' houses and 2 at the other. Then a switch, always disciplined, referred to and taught about the facts of life in pairs. Then in middle age, Kurt called me to say that Greg, the youngest, had unexpectedly died. And I called Chris to tell him. Chris and I flew home, and Kurt met us at the airport. We held each other. And in that moment, 4 became 3, became 1. The next one is seeing her in me. I'm sorry for your loss, people say, as if you're lost, like a forgotten wallet or misplaced keys. A phrase used to emphasize, to quell unease. I have said it too about pets and strangers, but never about you. I find you in my deep-set eyes and the cheekbones below. My hands matched yours 30 years ago. I see you in my summer tan that's dark by mid-July, and in the lines that arc around my mouth, if I laugh or cry. No, I haven't lost you, Mom. That could never be. You're present everywhere, most of all in me. Regaining her words, my 85-year-old mother was trying to regain her ability to speak after a stroke. I brought family photographs to the hospital. I'd say the names of loved ones, and she would attempt to repeat them. After days of frustration, she began to correctly, proudly, and loudly say the names when the photographs were produced. One day, she started humming the tune of an old nursery rhyme, and I joined her in recalling the words. A nurse came to the door and asked what we were doing. My mother smiled and said, "We are doing love." Call your grandmother. She doesn't realize how one phone call can affect a grandmother who lives far away. It was unexpected, but so welcome. My 14-year-old granddaughter called me of her own volition with her just purchased first phone. It wasn't a text or a message on Facebook, Twitter, Skype, or Instagram, none of which I really understand. It was a real old-fashioned phone call, her first to me ever. She called to mourn the damage to the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris because we had been there, just the two of us, on a recent trip to Paris. We shared our sadness and our love. Something to give. The last time I saw my grandma, she had no idea who I was. She'd lost everything, her memories, her laugh, her weight. She'd shiver constantly. "Cold," she'd whisper, "cold." I kept trying to give her a blanket, but she panicked every time and handed it back to me. We repeated this until finally she used all her energy to reach out and wrap the blanket around me. For the first time, she relaxed, smiled, perfectly content as she shivered. Even with everything taken from her, she found something to give. A warm meal for my brother. My big brother and I giggled at our successful disobedience as we traded comic books, flashlights bobbing between our beds. He was my friend. The two of us bonded by years of childhood mischief. Decades later, leaving a blues venue, I realized it had been 6 years since I'd known my brother's whereabouts. He would have loved the performance. Outside, a stranger approached. "Spare $5 for a sandwich?" he asked. Looking into his eyes, I wondered when my homeless brother had last savored a warm meal. To the stranger's delight, I pulled out a 20. That night, I fed my brother. He waited until morning. It was Christmas Eve in the intensive care unit. My husband was unresponsive. I put my head on his bed and dozed off. When I awoke, it was 2 a.m. Christmas morning. Death was coming, and I was afraid. I caressed his hand and talked to him. "I don't want to drive home alone in the dark and cold. Can you wait until dawn to pass on?" I got in bed with him. Our souls met. Peace. The sun came up, and my husband took his last breath. His final gift to me was the gift of life. Relationships, I'm going to read something else first. When shame leads to kindness. My mother and I were driving through Detroit when we stopped at a light and noticed a blind man attempting to cross a busy street. My mother told me to go help him, but I, a shy, baffled teenager, refused. She got out and helped the man across, then we drove on. My shame lingered until decades later in Los Angeles, when I noticed the blind man trying to cross Vine Street. I stopped and helped him, shutting down 5 lanes of traffic. Driving off, I heard people clapping and tooting their horns. Thank you for your example, Mother. And there's an American play written by Thornton Wilder entitled Our Town, and it's about different relationships in this small town. And I'm just going to read a few sentences from one of the members who's passed away and we assume is in heaven. And here goes. In our town, when Emily determines to return to life for a day, the dead urge her to choose to choose not one of her happiest days. No, says one, at least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It will be important enough. At the close of this one day, at the close of this return visit, Emily says, I didn't realize. So all that was going on, and we never noticed. Clocks ticking, and Mama's sunflowers, and food, and coffee, and new iron dresses, and bags, and sleeping, and waking up. Oh, Earth, you are too wonderful for anybody to realize you. When she returns, she says, and she asks, do any human beings ever realize life while they live it every single moment? And the answer is no. Maybe the saints and the poets, maybe they do some. And 2 lessons learned. One of them, the first lesson is called Cleaning Lady. During my 2nd month of college, our professor gave us a pop quiz. I was a conscientious student and had breezed through the questions until I read the last one. What is the first name of the woman who cleans the school? Surely this was some kind of joke. I had seen the cleaning woman several times. She was tall, dark-haired, and in her 50s. But how would I know her name? I handed in my paper, leaving the last question blank. Just before class ended, one student asked if the last question would count toward our quiz grade. Absolutely, said the professor. In our careers, you will meet many people. All are significant. They deserve your attention and care, even if all you do is smile and say hello. I've never forgotten that lesson. I also learned her name was Dorothy. And the second lesson, pick up in the rain. One night at 11:30 p.m., an older African-American woman was standing on the side of an Alabama highway trying to endure a lashing rainstorm. Her car broken down and she desperately needed a ride. Soaking wet, she decided to flag down the next car. A young white man stopped to help her, generally unheard of in those conflict-filled 1960s. The man took her to safety, helped her get assistance, and put her into a taxi cab. She seemed to be in a big hurry, but wrote down his address and thanked him. 7 days went by, and a knock came on the man's door. To his surprise, a giant console color TV was delivered to his home. A special note was attached. It read, "Thank you so much for assisting me on the highway the other night. The rain drenched not only my clothes, but also my spirits. Then you came along. Because of you, I was able to make it to my dying husband's bedside just before he passed away. God bless you for helping me and unselfishly serving others." And it is signed, this is true story, sincerely, Mrs. Nat King Cole. And Nat King Cole died February 15, 1965. And something, Eros, what God is he? Love. Okay, he's the God. Okay. I bring him up because he's takes his arrow and he shoots, and whoever he shoots, he has. Eros is the Greek god of love, of passion, and physical desire. And here is a poet, and the poet's name is Xenodontos. And he sees Eros standing by a waterfall, the statue, and it's by a waterfall. And he writes this very short poem. The poem is a statue of Eros. Who carved love and placed him by this fountain, thinking he could control such fire with water? Okay, and I'm coming close to an end here. A prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. And I leave you and me with this last. On the street, I saw a small girl, cold and shivering in a thin dress with little hope of a decent meal. I became angry and said to God, "Why did you permit this? Why don't you do something about it?" For a while, God said nothing. That night, he replied quite suddenly, "I certainly did something about it. I made you." I want to thank you. Well, if they want, yes.
Does anybody have any questions?
Only that it's absolutely marvelous. Breathtaking. Kept my attention the whole time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?